Well, it's Valentine's Day, so there's really only one option for a lonely guy like myself. Read some good old romance manga. Let's see what options we have here. Pretty good, but I haven't actually finished it yet, so pass. Ooh, yeah, don't feel like touching this one today. Not really in an ecchi mood, sorry. Not bad, but I don't think I'm ready for something too emotional right now. Hey, come on, I already said I'm not doing that one. Next! I actually really like this one, but I think I want to save it for a later date. Alright, this is getting old. Listen, I already told you I'm not going to do a video on... Anyway, today we're going to be talking about To Love-Ru. Written by Saki Hasemi and illustrated by Kentaro Yabuki, To Love-Ru began its publication in Weekly Shonen Jump in April of 2006. The series stars a young man named Rito Yuki, who lives a fairly unimpressive life. After failing to confess to his crush one day, an event that most young men can only dream of occurs. A naked girl appears out of nowhere in Rito's bathtub. While he's in it. This is Lala Seytalin Deviluk, Princess of the alien Deviluk Kingdom. After running away from home in an attempt to avoid another marriage proposal, Lala finds herself on Earth, and after being saved by Rito, falls in love with him. This culminates when Rito finally confesses his feelings to his crush, only to have everyone mistakenly think he was confessing to Lala instead. It's a classic setup for romantic comedy manga like this, being very similar to classic series like Urusei Yatsura, but it serves its purpose well here, setting the stage for all the trouble Rito will face in the future. Fitting for the title To Love-Ru, a play on the English words love and trouble. As the series continues, more and more girls aside from Lala are introduced that take interest in Rito for one reason or another, quickly turning To Love-Ru into a quintessential harem manga. So, before continuing further, I think it only makes sense to introduce our cast of lovely ladies. Lala Seytalin Deviluk, as mentioned previously, is an alien princess who becomes accidentally engaged to Rito. While a bit of an airhead, Lala's incredible book smarts result in her creating many wacky inventions that serve to enhance the series' antics, although she still isn't quite used to many of Earth's social norms. Haruna Sairenji is the girl that Rito has a crush on, and is a fairly normal, soft-spoken girl. However, she also begins developing feelings for Rito, leading to many awkward situations as neither party wants to confess. Haruna also becomes close friends with Lala, resulting in her being dragged into many of the crazy scenarios that Rito and Lala get into. Saki Tenjoin is a classic queen bee type character, being a popular rich girl who believes she deserves everyone's praise. As such, when Lala starts attending school and stealing everyone's affection, Saki gets competitive, determined to steal back the seat of most popular, even if most of her schemes end up going nowhere. Golden Darkness, or Yami, is a girl who is hired by one of Lala's suitors to assassinate Rito. As a professional assassin, Yami is able to manipulate her own hair to attack, transforming it into various weapons, a set of large fists, or even a pair of wings for... Wait a minute. Hey, yeah, this is just Eve from Black Cat. Yeah, if you weren't aware, this isn't Kentaro Yabuki's first work in Jump. He was also the author of the early 2000s sci-fi thriller manga Black Cat. Yami here is basically a complete reuse of the Black Cat character Eve, a young girl who is a trained killer that is able to transform parts of her body for combat, with a nearly identical design. Eve isn't the only character repurposed for To Love-Ru, as several other prominent Black Cat characters end up making their way over, complete with identical designs, names, and even backstories in some cases. It's not something I'm really upset about, though. The story makes it clear that To Love-Ru doesn't really have any ties to Black Cat's universe, and that these are more like little nods to fans of Yabuki's previous manga, although it is admittedly kind of distracting at first. Back on topic, Ren is an alien boy and a childhood friend of Lala's, creating a rivalry with Rito for her affections. Why am I mentioning him in this section, you ask? Because Ren's species has a unique ability that, with a sneeze, they change sex, transforming Ren into the girl Run, who actually has deep feelings for Rito, much to Ren's chagrin. Yui Kotagawa is a member of the school's disciplinary committee, and is committed to fixing what she deems to be salacious behavior, mainly committed by Lala and Rito. Her straight man nature and lack of experience or knowledge of romance result in her becoming the tsundere of the series, developing feelings for Rito herself after seeing his more chivalrous side. Mikan Yuki is Rito's younger sister. Despite being only a middle schooler, she's pretty mature for her age, more so than her brother anyway. Being pretty receptive, she often attempts to play matchmaker for Rito and Haruna, although her attempts are rarely successful. Why am I mentioning her in this section? We'll get there. Nana Astar Deviluk and Momo Belia Deviluk are Lala's younger sisters. While Nana is a bit of a brat, Momo is surprisingly cunning for her age, leading to her eventually becoming a much more pivotal character in the story. All of these girls only serve to create more troubles for our main boy, Rito. While there is a bit of that will they won't they element present in many similar romance series, Touloveru is much more about the comedic hijinks than the romantic drama. Even the whole Lala being an alien thing isn't much of an issue, as it's revealed to the other characters fairly early on, and they're all pretty chill about it. It's a refreshing approach that makes Touloveru a much lighter read, not constrained with as much tension. Not to say those kinds of stories aren't enjoyable, but I find something like Touloveru much easier to pick up, personally. Besides, any heavy drama would probably distract from Touloveru's main appeal. See, Touloveru is one of the foremost examples of the ecchi genre. For the uninitiated, ecchi, stylized to sound like the Latin character H, is a Japanese term used to refer to playfully sexual content. While it is sometimes used in reference to pornographic content, that's not really the correct use of the term. While this may come off as shocking and perverse to Western audiences, ecchi and content similar to it have a long history in Japan. In fact, one of the first ecchi manga was also one of Shonen Jump's first big hits, being 1968's Harenchi Gakuen, penned by Go Nagai of Devilman, Mazinger, and Cutie Honey fame. If you're curious, I'd recommend this video by Salad Days that goes more into depth into the history of ecchi content as a whole, as well as its status in Japanese culture. I bring all this up because you need to know this when going into Touloveru. If you have a problem with seeing a few boobies, then you're not going to enjoy reading it. This does, of course, bring up another issue that I feel I have to address. Most of the girls used as eye candy are underage, only being high schoolers. While this isn't uncommon for series such as this, it's still something that I know makes some people uncomfortable. This leads into a whole discussion about the sexualization of underage characters in Japanese media that I'd really rather not get into right now. That being said, I don't have that big of a problem with how Touloveru handles things. Despite the copious amounts of cheesecake shots, it never feels malicious, shall we say. A lot of this can be chalked up to the way everyone is characterized, Rito especially. One of the guidelines that Hasemi and Yabuki first set for themselves when initially writing the series was that Rito could not be a pervert. All of his accidents are just that, accidents. A classic case of the lucky pervert trope common in ecchi manga. His habit of erotic pratfalling even becomes a bit of a plot point later on, with it being treated as this incurable affliction that Rito must overcome. Touloveru is pretty cliché when it comes to the actual gags. Typical ecchi and romance manga fare, like boy and girl being stuck in a tight space together, boy and girl are caught in a rainstorm, and boy tries to confess to girl at the summer fireworks festival, complete with the biggest firework drowning out the actual confession. However, Touloveru does take an opportunity to put a sci-fi spin on things thanks to its characters and setting. This typically results in your standard tentacled monsters or clothes-melting slime, but also has scenarios like the gang being stranded on an alien planet, or Rito swapping bodies with a dog. These are mainly used for suggestive jokes and imagery, yes, but it also gives the cast more time to characterize themselves and bounce off of each other. My favorite example of this is when Rito and a few of the girls go and investigate an old school building that is supposedly haunted. This allows all the characters to show off their personalities a bit, be it Lala's airheadedness, Yami's cool-headedness, or Haruno's intense fear of ghosts and monsters. This was also shortly after Yui had been introduced, so it gives her an opportunity to establish relationships with the cast and flesh out her own character more. And of course, there's a fight with a big tentacle monster at the end for some typical To-Love-Ru fan service. Now, one of the biggest problems with any harem series like this is the ending. Ending a harem series is hard, because while everyone reading may have an idea of who they think the best girl is, it's Yui. The answer is Yui, and if you say otherwise, you're wrong! At the end of the day, the main boy can only end up with one of them. An ending like this is very tricky to do in a satisfying manner, as you have to pick an option that makes sense for the characters, but also make sure that each rejected girl has their feelings resolved. Which is why the way that To-Love-Ru ends can come off as a bit strange. Rito finally gets up the courage to tell Lala that he loves her, but also that he loves Haruna. Lala, being very excited about this revelation, forcefully sends Rito away via jetpack to go confess to Haruna. But when he actually gets to her, a typically comedic series of events results in Rito confessing to a bunch of his love interests in a similar manner to the beginning of the series. While it's kind of cute as a thematic ending, this is almost the exact opposite of what I just described, right? An ending that's almost as non-committal as possible, with the final line of the manga affirming that Rito's troubled days will likely still continue on. As it turns out, Hasemi and Yabuki were quite unsure as to how to actually end To-Love-Ru. Hasemi especially didn't really want to end the series, eventually resulting in them deciding on this endingless ending. In fact, when asked in an interview shortly afterwards what the pair's next project would be, Yabuki responded with, "If they'd let us do it, it'd be To-Love-Ru 2. Which probably explains why, about a year later in October 2010, the sequel series To-Love-Ru Darkness began publication. That's right, we're covering both of these today, as this really wouldn't feel like a complete story without it. And despite the praise I gave the original To-Love-Ru, you might be surprised to hear that I actually consider Darkness to be the better series, for a couple of reasons. First, rather than the weekly Shonen Jump magazine that the original To-Love-Ru was published in, Darkness would be published in the then-new Jump Square magazine. This meant a few things. First of all, Jump Square was published monthly, as opposed to Weekly Jump being published, well, weekly. Because of this, chapters of manga in Jump Square were much longer, usually around 40 pages, about twice the length of the typical 19-page Weekly Jump chapter. So not only did Hasemi and Yabuki have more time to work on each chapter, they were free to fill it with more story and detail. While the original To-Love-Ru often had more episodic chapters with one-off gags, Darkness is much more focused around a central plot. That plot serves to expand on some of the original's more underutilized characters, namely with Momo and Nana. The two of them had been introduced near the tail end of To-Love-Ru's initial run, and thus didn't have much time to interact with the rest of the cast. But here, they're given much more focus, with Momo in particular practically overshadowing her older sister Lala to become the female lead of the manga. But no character receives more attention in Darkness than the series' new namesake, Yami. Yami's pretty dark backstory had always seemed a little out of place in the very upbeat world of To-Love-Ru, but Darkness takes full advantage of that, delving deeper into Yami's past, her relationships, and giving her an honest-to-goodness well-done character arc. You could make the reasonable complaints that all of this is still derivative of Black Cat, but I'd argue that Yami's character here is different enough from Eve's that it still manages to be its own thing. The tonally different setting and supporting cast help a lot with that point too. And how about that supporting cast? Pretty much everyone from the original manga comes back. Momo and Nana, as previously stated, get much more play here. And while Momo gets most of the focus, that doesn't mean Nana is hung out to dry. In fact, she plays a very important role alongside a new character, Maya Kurosaki. Maya is a living weapon able to transform parts of her body, similar to Yami. Maya is being ordered by her master, someone named Nemesis, to find Yami and convert her back to being the assassin, Golden Darkness. And in order to do that, Maya integrates herself into Earth's society, becoming close with Rito and the girls, namely Nana. Maya's struggle becomes fighting between her new human life with her friends and her old life as a living weapon, an existence that is all she's ever known at this point. It's similar to Yami's arc, but is helped along by having different forces actively drawing Maya to either side. The longer chapters also serve to better realize this aspect of the story with a few genuinely solid emotional moments. And Maya's growing relationships with Nana, Yami, and the others are really cute to see. As for Momo, well, she's more focused on the romance side of the story. See, Momo realizes that with so many girls in love with Rito, there's no way to truly make everyone happy. That is, unless she manages to convince all of them to join a literal harem with Rito at the center. After all, he is supposed to be the next king of Deviluk, and there's nothing wrong with a king having a few concubines, is there? In a more meta sense, this also helps to solve the problem of Toulouvru Classic having a bit of a non-ending. You don't need to pick one girl if you end up with all of them, after all. Thus, the aptly named harem plan is enacted, with Momo trying her hardest to get Rito to give in to his urges and agree to make all the girls in his life happy, both emotionally and sexually. There's another important difference between Weekly Jump and Jump Square, and that's the age demographic. While Weekly Jump is targeted towards tweens and young teens, Square has a main demographic of late teens and young adults. With an older audience comes looser restrictions on what can be depicted in the magazine, and you can probably see where this is going. Hasemi and Yabuki took it upon themselves to one-up their previous work and push the envelope even further until it was practically falling off the table. This results in Darkness being basically just softcore porn at times. And while that would normally be a total no-go, Yabuki got really good at making drawings that technically didn't show anything, but certainly implied some things. This ranged from convenient soap placement, to the Devilukian's sensitive tails having a very unique shape, to Rito getting his face shoved in a manner of places where it shouldn't be. If you've seen the other series that I've covered on this channel, you'll know that I'm not exactly opposed to a bit of fan service, but this is a bit much. What's that white liquid? Why, that's just mayonnaise. Oh, that's just ice cream. That's just an alien flower squirting out its milky nectar. Maybe I should just scrap this whole video, man. The perviness extends to even more characters this time around, with minor characters from the original series getting chapters dedicated to them, like Haruna's friend Risa, Saki's bodyguard Rin, or Rito himself, transformed into a girl through one of Lala's wacky inventions. If you're concerned that there will be only teenage girls to ogle at, Darkness makes sure to add in a few adult women to the mix. They could never make me hate you, Dr. Mikado. Of course, that brings about the problem that these adult women are getting into perverted situations with an underage boy, which raises all kinds of red flags. And then there's Mikan. I mentioned Mikan earlier in the section going over Rito's love interests, and while her relationship with Rito is present in the original series, it's much more questionable in Darkness. Mikan mostly plays the role of the sensible one, trying to keep Momo in line and prevent her from messing with her brother. But Darkness has Momo go on the offensive. Ooh, you secretly want to bang your brother, don't you? I know that, once again, this isn't exactly an uncommon trope in series like this, but it's the one romance that I really don't like. And she's always doing this move where she suggestively tucks her hair behind her ear. Like, there is no reason for her to be doing all that. Also, Mikan's 12, did I mention that? While a lot of this is understandably a turnoff to some, the over-the-top erotica is actually one of the things that keeps me coming back to Toulouvru Darkness. Not in a weird way, I honestly just find it hilarious how ridiculous some of it gets. You can tell how Hasemi and Yabuki were constantly trying to one-up themselves to prevent the same gags from getting stale. Like, come on, guys. Seriously? Who eats ice cream like this? Yabuki's art has improved in more than just the lewd aspect, however. Character rendering is better than ever in Darkness, and the comedic moments have legitimately funny facial expressions to accompany them. But the main place where the art in Darkness improves is an area that you may not expect at first. Yeah, To Love Ru Darkness is a lot more action-packed than the original. The new characters introduced contribute a large part to this. Maya being a living transform weapon like Yami means she gets a few good fight scenes. Yami herself gets some good moments, particularly when she's forcibly transformed into her darkness form, which I can barely show in this video due to her lack of reasonable clothing. And the catalyst for most of this action is the being known as Nemesis. Nemesis is introduced as the first real antagonist that To Love Ru has, being the one behind Maya's initial arrival on Earth and the plot to unlock Yami's true darkness. So when Nemesis finally makes an appearance personally, it's a bit shocking. Nemesis is a transform weapon like Yami and Maya, but on a much higher scale. Due to her being composed entirely of dark matter, Nemesis can technically morph her body any way she wants. She just chooses to look like a little girl most of the time because, well, you know. While she's legitimately kind of intimidating and creepy when she's first introduced, Nemesis soon becomes curious with how a previously cold-hearted killer like Maya broke free from her manipulation and began to enjoy life on Earth. After seeing how all the girls interact with Rito, Nemesis inevitably becomes interested in him herself, becoming a more actively mischievous character than even the likes of Momo, and before long, she's more of a nuisance than a legitimate threat. I really do like the addition of Nemesis to the story, though, as a more aggressive character was exactly what To Love Ru needed to mix up its wishy-washy cast of girls. She also helps lead to some good character moments for everyone else, notably showing off Rito's kindness. Despite how much Nemesis has antagonized him, Rito still doesn't harbor any negative feelings for her, even allowing her to temporarily reside in his body while she recovers after a big fight. This is a pretty genius move narrative-wise, as it allows Nemesis to indirectly interact with more of the main cast while learning exactly why so many of them are infatuated with a guy as affable as Rito. Not to mention, it leads to some pretty funny moments visually. So, how does a series like this end? I talked a lot about the ending to the original To Love Ru and how it left something to be desired. Does darkness improve on its predecessor? I'd say so. Through a convoluted scheme by Nemesis, Rito and Haruna end up in the gym storage shed alone together, where they finally manage to confess their feelings for each other. And it's really well done. It's a genuinely sweet moment, having these two characters just spend some time talking and getting their feelings in order. Rito's conflict about loving Haruna but not wanting to let down the other girls that he knows love him feels surprisingly human and grounded for this series. Him and Haruna accepting that there are things in life that they need to work out first before officially starting a relationship may come off as a bit of a cop-out, but I think it's a surprisingly nice message that stays true to the core of both of their characters. The cherry on top of this is Momo, who finds herself surprisingly upset after overhearing this conversation. For the entire series, she had been building up the harem plan as a way to mask her true feelings, that she really loves Rito and wants him all to herself. So when Rito admits that he loves Haruna the most, she's forced to confront that reality and breaks down. It's only after a pep talk from Nana of all people that Momo picks herself up and tells Rito her true feelings, assuring him that as long as he and Haruna haven't made anything official, she'll keep trying her best to win him over. It's a touching payoff to Momo's character that had been built up throughout Darkness, and it serves as a good way to bookend the series while still leaving things open-ended in a way that I think works much better than the original. So, what can really be said about To Love Ru? It's a series about teenagers dealing with their feelings and finding out for themselves how to manage them. It's a series with terrific art and some surprisingly good action. It's a series with a lot of naked girls. It's fun, it's strange, it's perverse, and I can't help but enjoy it. It's one of the manga that I would consider a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. It's obviously not going to be a series for everyone, but if you can get past the ecchi aspect, I think you'll find something really worth reading. And with a cast this diverse and well characterized, I can guarantee you that there will be at least one character that you will find yourself attracted to, romantically or otherwise. As long as it's not Yui, she's mine! Back off! Hey, thanks for watching. I put a lot of effort into videos like this, so if you enjoyed it, I'd suggest hitting that like button or subscribing if you haven't already. It really does help out. or maybe leave a comment on what you think about To Love Ru, or any other series that you want me to talk about. Until next time, have a happy Valentine's Day, and take care.